Welcome, everyone, to Taxing Poetic. I am your co-host, Tim Howe, along with...
your other co-host, Jenny Carter.
And we're here, as always, with JB.
How's it going?
Awesome. And today we're going to be covering an episode that we're calling The Jimmy, which is effectively going to be a legislative walkthrough with a great guest of ours. And we typically start off with what, JB?
A haiku from Jenny, but not today.
I've been fired today.
You've been fired today because the haiku is going to be taken over by our guest, who's Jimmy Cotty. He is the executive director of the Georgia Manufactured Housing Association. Jimmy, very nice to have you here.
Great to be here.
Awesome, man. So why don't you hit us up with a little bit of your Taxing Poetic? Let's hear your poetry skills.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Okay, yeah, I know it's customary to start with a haiku. So I have several here, and I think you guys will enjoy them. So
we're getting a 3-for-1 today.
Wow.
I could do more.
It. No,
I could do more.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a whole episode of just haikus. Jimmy and I back and forth with haikus.
That one will be
it's
90 seconds long.
And FYI, I will not be present for that episode.
It will be the Taxing Poetic Poetry Slam.
I love it.
So, yeah. So that's just a warm-up.
Okay.
Okay.
Back to Jimmy. Here we go.
Back to Jimmy.
All right. Haiku number 1. Changing the tax code. Lobbyists and accountants. Worlds are colliding.
Ooh. That's a Seinfeld reference.
Very,
Love it. Yes.
Very
Absolutely.
solid.
George. Yes. A good George reference.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Like it.
Number 2. Jenny and Jimmy will make tax podcast magic. Tim, he's not needed.
Oh, that's my favorite one so far.
Oh, well played, Jimmy. This episode's going to last about 3 more minutes. No, just kidding.
I love it.
Well, to redeem myself, Tim, I wrote one on behalf of Synexus here. So tell me what you think with this one.
Awesome.
Credits and exempts. They're real and spectacular. Get Synexus Pros.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. That is an absolutely awesome one. I love it.
I need to up my haiku game.
You know what?
I know.
Yeah.
Do you contract out? Can I hire you for, for copy?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Well, hey, and great plug-in for Synexus Tax Solutions. It obviously sponsors our podcast, so good stuff. Good
Yeah,
stuff.
I like them. They're okay.
Awesome. Well, I'll give a little bit about Jimmy's background, y'all. He's not just a poet laureate. He's also been a lobbyist for, Lord, I don't know how many years in the state of Georgia. So looking at about like 20 years. Okay, so 20 years in the state of Georgia, he's actually been a lobbyist. I actually got to meet Jimmy a number of years ago. He had pushed through some legislation that was very important to a couple of my clients at the time in the concrete industry. He had actually argued and lobbied to have concrete mixing trucks treated as manufacturing equipment, which typically, Jimmy, they're not considered manufacturing equipment. Why?
Because they have wheels.
That's right. And they go over the road.
And they go over the road, yes.
Yeah. So a big sticking point in the state here, especially in our manufacturing exemption laws in the state of Georgia, is manufacturing has to occur at one location and you can't move it around. Right. So Jimmy's going to talk about the DOR and that whole situation and how he massaged and got them to agree to, some of these changes, which is really interesting. But that's how we were introduced to each other. And we've just become friends and kind of kept in touch over the years and, kind of worked together. And he's working on a bill right now in the legislature, and I'll let him kind of talk about it. But he's just going to do a walkthrough of kind of, the School of Rock type thing of how something goes from being an idea all the way through to becoming law, right? And
Sure.
So, Jimmy, I'm going to turn it over to you. So why don't you talk to us about how this new law that this new proposed legislation that you came up with, how does it all start?
So, when you represent clients and as a lobbyist, I kind of look at myself as a problem solver, right? And when I've worked in the concrete industry on behalf of those guys, and now I work for the manufactured housing industry, a lot of blue collar type folks that work in those industries, and they're kind of like, they want government kept out of their business and whatnot. And my job, what I tell them is government's supposed to work for you, and theoretically it is. They work for us, right? And if you know how to handle it correctly, you can put the government back to work for you. And that's kind of what I feel like an effective lobbyist does. And so,
because lobbyists typically get like a bad name, right? You get like a bad rap.
Yeah,
It's like,
we have not been nice to lobbyists on this podcast.
No.
Previously.
No, not
previous
previously.
episodes. So.
no, we typically get a bad rap. I think that changed a few years ago when a movie called Thank You for Smoking came out. Have you guys seen that movie?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's such a great movie. Coming from a lobbyist, this is a great movie. So
There you go.
But in any event, no, we as an industry, it kind of gets a bad rap. But I'm there to be a voice of an industry, and if their voice is not being heard, the legislature is going to hear somebody else's voice in its place.
Got it.
Whether you're trying to expand sales tax or, tort reform or, social issues, business issues, whatever. I mean, there's a role for you to kind of plug in and have your industry have a seat at the table too. So, so that's kind of what I do. So, so years ago, when I was working for the ready mix industry, we were coming out of recession. Guys were pitching pitties. I came across, or I was reading about how we had a new manufacturing law. That was when integrated plant theory got passed back in, I think it was like 2012.
Yeah, and they started doing phased in, components of it like utilities and stuff like that. Yep.
Yeah. So, like you were saying, the whole idea with our manufacturers exemptions in Georgia is they're pretty broad, and theoretically, just about anything that comes in the gate is sales tax exempt for a qualified manufacturer. And so, but in our case, the actual manufacture happened in the back of the truck, and it happened in process as it was going down the road. And it wasn't because it was more efficient to do it that way. It was because science required it to be done that way. That's the only way to do it.
And when we're talking like these concrete trucks, by the way, it was so fascinating when we stepped through this and did plant tours and stuff. And Jimmy and I actually, got to go out and, I did a tour and explained it to my clients to see how we were going to file for this exemption. They were explaining it back to me like, yeah, this should just obviously be exempted. It's great that Jimmy got this law passed.
To me, it was abundantly clear that the trucks is where the manufacture occurred. So I had this concept, and so how do I need it to become law? Well, first thing I know, if I can go to the legislature, right, and ask them for this, first thing they're going to say is, well, what does DOR have to say about this?
I don't know what DOR is.
That is the Department of Revenue.
That's what I was going to guess, though.
Yeah, exactly. Think like Darth Vader and the Evil Empire.
Yeah, I thought that
just
was-
kidding. But
There's a
sorry, Frank.
Just add them to the list, the apologies
Yes,
list.
they're on the list.
Okay, good. Yes.
there's a department for everything, right? So regardless of what business you're in, there's some regulatory authority out there that you have to be responsive to. And so if you're in the tax world, that's obviously the Department of Revenue. So I knew I was going to be asked, what does the department have to say about this? So I went to visit with the department, and went to their sales and use tax folks, and I said, we've got this, I've got this issue. Can we walk through this? And they had this language that said the commissioner can't be an expert on every manufacturing process. And so the commissioner reserves the right to make judgments on a case-by-case basis, right? That seems very logical.
Yep.
Yes.
And then in the law there, or in their rules and regs, following that language, they had something that said, now here are examples of things that generally being the
Broad word.
the broad word here, here are things that generally will not be sales tax exempt. And the first thing it says, tag motor vehicles for use it over the road.
That's right.
And so, I went to the department. I said, well, they said, well, you can't do that because it's a tag motor vehicle. I said, no. This says generally they will not be. It doesn't say they
Cannot be. And will not be.
And it said, and even before that, it says you have language saying, well, we're not experts. You make a good case, we can make a case-by-case determination. I said, so make your case-by-case determination. And they wouldn't do it. They would not come off of that.
Is the word generally usually in legal documents?
So
That feels-
typically how Georgia does it, and I'll let Jimmy this will be good for you to expand on. They draft these pieces of legislation, and specifically at the DOR, they'll draft their rules and regs. So you have law, you have statute, right, that gets passed, and then the DOR typically comes down and does interpretations, which are typically their rules and regulations, right? That how this statute would typically apply on a case by case. Well, they want it to be as broad as possible, so they can either apply it where they want to apply it, and not just like, oh, I want to do that. No, it's like, in a certain situation, if it fits the fact pattern, they'll go ahead and apply it. If it doesn't apply it, they want it to be broad as well, so that they can enforce a taxable type product in a situation that generally would not be, taxable, right?
Generally.
That's it.
Because a tagged motor vehicle, right, is TPP.
Actually, it is TPP, but it falls into this licensed movable vehicle, and
Right.
as a licensed movable vehicle, it's subject to title ad valorem tax, and in the state of Georgia, and as such, it wouldn't be a qualifying piece of manufacturing equipment. That's it.
The department will act like they make their regulations, but their regulations are not infallible, right? The last word is what's in the state code. Okay, DOR can interpret anything however they want, but they still have to follow state law.
That's
right. And we checked all the boxes, right? And I couldn't understand why DOR wouldn't come around, but they just would not come around on this. And so it led us to have to go to the legislature and ask for a fix. All tax bills, they start in what's called the House Ways and Means Committee. That's the committee of origin. And so instead of just drafting a bill, you want to get the buy-in of the chairman, first of all, before you even start putting in all this work. So I had invited the chairman at the time. His name was Jay Powell, very, very brilliant man. And he was down in Camilla, Georgia, is where he's from, in way southwest Georgia. And he met me at a concrete plant in Moultrie, Georgia. We walked through the plant. We showed him everything that was happening, from the stockpiles to the conveyor belts to the silos, and just showed how the foot bone was connected to the knee bone to the hip bone, and so on, and how everything depended on each other. But then at the end of all of that, we physically watched raw material being dumped into the drum of the truck. And once the water and the cement powder touch, that's effectively when the
Chemical reaction.
Yes.
And that's the key to getting a manufacturing exemption, right? Is the transformation of raw materials to another product.
Exactly.
And so even though it's on four wheels, that's still happening.
It's still happening inside the back of the truck, right? That truck is technically creating TPP as it's moving along the
that's
road.
So amazing.
And to even take it one step further, we went to a plant and they pulled up a flatbed truck and they dumped rock and sand and cement powder into it, and then splashed some water over it. And the guy pulled his truck off the side and tipped the bed, and off fell the muck. It wasn't concrete,
Right.
And that was just to prove the point.
Did you seriously do that?
Yes, we seriously did it.
Tell me you showed that video to somebody at the DOR. Please.
No, we didn't show it to DOR. I showed it to the legislature.
That is a level.
That's awesome.
That's a level of pettiness I aspire to.
That would be so great.
I love that.
But I could see Chairman Powell kind of thinking in his head, and careful to tell him we weren't trying to get out of paying TAVT. There's still going to be TAVT on the chassis. We just needed to make sure that as you're dumping rock and sand and all this stuff into a truck, it's going to incur a lot of wear and tear, and we need to be able to maintain these trucks. And so that was the whole idea behind it. So he says, you know what, I've got an idea. Why don't you talk to, and he gave me the name of a specific legislature. He goes, I think this would be a good bill for the two of you to work together on. And so I called this guy up, and I didn't know him from Adam at the time, but we drafted a bill, or legislative council drafted a bill for us, the attorneys down at the Capitol, and we started circulating it amongst members of the Ways and Means Committee. We before the legislature went back in, we hosted more plant tours and got guys out to physically see what, because when they see it, the light bulb goes on, and they can understand, oh, this makes a lot of sense. So as far as getting into the legislative process, we're starting in the Ways and Means Committee. They have subcommittees, so the bill gets you get a sponsor, the bill gets drafted, they get co-sponsors to sign on, and then it gets dropped off with the clerk, and they introduce it, they read it on the House floor, and it gets assigned to Ways and Means. And then the Ways and Means chairman gets it, and he goes, you know what, let's stick this in our sales tax subcommittee. They'll make you go through 2 subcommittee hearings, then it goes to full Ways and Means Committee. At that point, if they vote it out, then you go to the Rules Committee. The people that do well with it, basically they have everything choreographed before it even starts in January. And so that's what we kind of felt like we had done here. We knew it was going to go into subcommittee. We knew what kind of what we needed to touch on. So a lot of times what they look for when you're debating bills or the merits of it, they'll ask, what are the other states around us doing? So I need to know that. What's the fiscal impact going to be?
What they say about it on Toxic Poetic.
That's exactly right. Boom. I love it.
So it goes subcommittee, full committee, and then if it passes out full committee, it still has what's called a Rules Committee. And the Rules Committee is who decides if it's going to go to the floor for a full vote, right? So you come out of Rules Committee, then it goes to the House floor, and it passes. Then you got to go back over to the Senate, and you got to do the whole thing all over again.
All the committees and everything,
yes.
all over again.
So it gets reintroduced.
Wow.
It gets read in the Senate. It gets assigned to a committee, the Senate Finance Committee for tax bills.
Does the bureaucracy of this completely frustrate you? I mean, and just be honest.
No.
I mean, is it cool to watch the machine work, right? But I guess you're just so used to it.
For me, it's a challenge, and I enjoy it. And as long as you're handling your business well, people will hear you out down in the Georgia legislature, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. I'll finish getting through the committee process, but you go back to the Senate and it goes all over again, right? You got to go full committee, Senate Rules Committee, Senate floor vote, and if the Senate has not amended it, then it can go to the governor, right? But if the senator changes so much as a punctuation mark, it's got to go back over to the House. And they have to agree to the changes. After all that happens and the bill's passed, then the governor has 40 days to decide if he's going to sign or veto the bill. If he doesn't sign it, it just automatically goes into law, right?
Oh,
No.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
If you do nothing,
Schoolhouse Rock right here.
things still
There you
happen.
go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
You have all these steps you got to go through, right? And all it takes is one person to get some kind of bug up their ass
Right.
and throw a grenade and to blow the whole thing up
Amen.
for no good reason. And sometimes
Are you lobbying like each individual one of those groups?
He's having to lobby
Every
each
time?
individual person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like each time.
Within
Yeah.
the groups.
Man, that'd be
Yes,
I know.
individual,
so much texting.
yeah, individual reps and senators. No, we still do some old school stuff at the Capitol. We still have pages down there.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So you have a stand where you can go write on a little yellow slip of paper who you want to talk to, and they'll send a 13-year-old in there to hand it to somebody, and
That's amazing.
hopefully that person will come out and talk to you.
Sure.
You're standing outside. There's like a rope line there, and we all just kind of stand on the ropes, and we're waiting for folks to come in and out. I'll go and stand in one place, and we'll stand in the same place for an hour or two.
Yeah, right.
And they're like, "Is this what you do all day?" I'm like, "Welcome to lobbying."
I love this so much. This sounds so fun.
Yeah.
I also like that we
Totally
found out
West
why
Wing.
they call them lobbyists because he hangs out in the
That's
lobby.
right. That makes so much sense.
I thought it was just you lobby people for stuff, but no.
Right. You're waiting
where
in the
you're hanging
lobby.
out.
That's where you're hanging out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's sales, right? But you're not selling a consumer good or anything. You're selling a concept, or you're selling an idea.
Well, and you're creating relationships. Like your whole job really is, being the captain of a team. Maybe you're helping the guy write the bill, right?
Sometimes bills are as simple as just striking out a word
Oh, okay.
or adding a word.
Okay.
I mean, and there's huge things like in the tax code, right? So like the word or versus and.
True.
or shall versus may.
Shall versus may.
That's a big one. So
that-
if a bill says it shall do something, you have to do it. There's no option. If it says you may,
Right.
then
It's open for interpretation.
Yes, it's open for
And
interpretation.
if you say
So-
generally in front of anything, you're good.
That's
Apparently.
exactly it.
Generally, it may.
Do whatever
And it's
you
just
want.
like, man, this isn't saying anything at all.
JB, what would you like to have dinner tonight? for dinner
Generally,
tonight? Generally, I would like food.
May.
I may like
Generally, I may like food.
But then you're coordinating the tours. I mean, you're talking to every committee member. It just sounds like a lot of fun of relationship building and convincing people that you're right, which I love to do myself.
It's a good policy. Do you get to pick what you lobby for?
I bring stuff to my board and I say, hey, this other state did this. Or I tell folks, hey, you guys are the experts. I've never poured or made concrete in my life, or I've never built a manufactured home. You guys do that. Where are your choke points? What's holding you up? So there's a number of different ways to skin a cat when it comes to making public policy. Like the concrete tax bill, I had this toy concrete truck that I handed out. It was a model truck, and I
have one in my office.
yeah, I would pop the drum off. I'd spray paint them. I'd put a decal on them, and then I'd give them out as gifts. So when I had this chairman down in Moultrie, Georgia, I remember I was asking him a lot of questions, and he wasn't giving me a whole lot. He was keeping his cards close to his chest, right? And I said, well, Mr. Chairman, before you go, I got something for you. And I went in the room and I picked up this box and brought it out to him and said, here, a little gift for coming out. Thank you very much. And he looked at this thing, and it was like he just opened his favorite Christmas present. Aww. And he goes, you know what? And then he just started talking, and he started telling me everything I needed to know, and when he left, my member goes, man, that sounded pretty good. I said, when it all started, when I handed him that toy truck.
And the toy
That's
truck.
great.
That's awesome.
And he was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. So, just little things like that. When I was doing this, this mixer truck bill, the gentleman that was carrying the bill for me, he was a newish legislator. He had never passed a bill before. So I figured out after the fact, the chairman looked at my bill as something good for him to get his feet wet on to learn how to pass a bill the right way. And so I put together this whole folder for this particular representative, and I said, everywhere we go to talk to people about this bill, you carry this folder. And I said, when you carry it, make sure you hold the outside of it out so people can see the front of the folder. Because what I had done is he had a really goofy looking picture on the House website as his official folder. So I blew it up real big and I stuffed it in, and I said something. It was like House Bill 100, a bill by Representative so and so, and it had his picture with his big mug on it, and so everywhere we went, and he would just hold that out, and people would just kind of laugh, and it would kind of catch them off guard and disarm them, but it made it like really easy and comfortable to talk to folks about it, and they would
Took it from a boardroom to a living room, right?
Yeah, and they
made
would say,
people comfortable.
What's in the folder? And he said, well, we did all this work and we studied how this affects this, that, and how it works, and the DOT requires this, and other states do that, and all that. So we just had a whole bunch of information in there.
Personal
yeah,
touch and putting effort in. I have a couple of ideas. I mean, you can use them or not use them.
Oh God, here we go.
That have worked out really well for me at the podcast. You can either wear a costume or break out into song. So maybe bring
I would highly suggest doing neither of those.
a CD player
Albeit
with
they're
you.
quite memorable. I don't know if that would put you at the high end of anybody's list.
Well, it's funny you say about wearing a costume, because
See, there you go.
Oh,
when
God.
I first started lobbying, nobody at the Georgia Capitol wore a bow tie. It's just things move so swift, and you meet so many people that you can't remember everybody's name all the time. They'll at least remember I was the guy that wore the bow tie.
Absolutely.
There you
So
go, man. You're the bow tie guy.
You should have gotten a spinning one. That would have really set you apart.
I did not have one of those.
Okay, well, next time.
None of mine were pre-tied. I had to tie them myself, and so
Man, that's awesome.
It's called peacocking.
Yes,
There
I
you go.
have lots of ideas. You could wear the T-shirt that looks like a tuxedo.
Oh, God.
I mean,
Okay. Let me go ahead and cut her off from
Moving
her
on.
ideas.
I
Moving
guess
right along.
She's not wrong. They're memorable, but this isn't the
Right.
guy that I'm going to be like, I should pass my bill based on what the tuxedo guy with the spinning.
Exactly, and the guy who has the Danny McBride, Kentucky waterfall haircut.
Maybe that's not
So
that's what I
congratulations.
said. Use them or not use them. That's fine. Well, can you tell us about? So you work with manufactured housing now. We haven't heard, or you lobby on behalf of manufactured housing. And I didn't even think about this until you were going to be on the show. Of manufactured housing, is it real property? Is it? How does TPP?
That's absolutely great.
That's
Why don't we
what-
let Jimmy
that's
describe it?
what-
Because he and I have had a number of conversations about this. But
I
go
want to hear
ahead.
more about it. So that
Yeah.
okay. So manufactured housing is the nice house built in the factory, right?
That's right.
So it is. To answer your question, it is TPP.
Really?
When it comes out of the factory,
Okay.
there is a legal process you can go through if you own the land that the home is going to sit on. You can go through a legal process called detitling. Each home comes out and it has almost like a vehicle title. So you can file a form, a Department of Revenue T-234 form in Georgia. Don't ask me how I know that. But
You can geek out. It's fine. That's what we do around
We're
here.
nerds.
Yeah, we're nerds.
the state takes the title back from you, and now it's considered real property. So when you sell, you can't sell the home without selling the land with it.
Got it.
So it's just like your stick built, site built home. So the guy I did the concrete tax thing with, he was from an area of the state that had some manufactured housing factories in it, and he said, I've been trying to pass this tax bill for manufactured housing. Maybe you can help me do that.
So talk to me like I'm a fifth grader, which probably not too difficult. But so it comes off.
Give yourself a little more credit. Seventh grade.
Seventh grade.
Come on.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem.
So it comes out of the manufacturer and it's TPP. So you're paying vehicle or
You basically pay an
Ad
ad valorem tax on
Okay.
it. Yeah, because it's a trailer.
okay.
No, you're paying.
Well, and sales tax.
Yeah, you're paying
paying-
You're paying sales tax.
Sales tax like an automobile, like a vehicle.
Right. And,
Okay.
and there's law that Jimmy and I actually been talking about that for inventory of trailers and things like that, they're actually exempt from the ad valorem tax, but you're paying the sales tax on the transfer of the tangible personal
Right,
property and
on-
all the stuff
on
that's
the
there.
price of the
The
home.
manufactured home, yes.
Right. And so then when you go to detitle it, you're getting an exemption for how much? So if you've already paid the or sales tax, are you getting a credit back?
Well, if you're handling it all at closing, the closing attorney will take care of everything, and and the finance company will pay what they're told to pay, right?
You're basically reducing the sales tax owed It's all it is. It's at closing. So like you'd be sitting at the closing table, they'd hand you the finance paperwork. You'd see, oh, here's the original amount of sales tax. Now I'm getting a 50% cut, and boom, there's the final
when
amount.
it's attached to the land, though, is what
No,
you're saying.
I mean,
No?
well, at closing. So like when you're actually taking possession and you're going to go attach
okay.
it to the land.
Got it.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So
if you're going to retire the title.
If you're gonna, that's exactly
if
it.
I buy one of those like Amazon houses, I don't know if you've seen them. You buy them on Amazon, they're like $15,000, and they just like they come in a box and they spread apart, and now it's a house. That's manufactured housing, right?
No, not technically.
So what's the difference between it's like because I've seen these becoming more popular. Like I've seen Home Depot has like a $43,000 like house that you can buy, and it's like you just like buy it and you assemble it, and here's a house. Like
well, it goes to how the home is built, right? So when you, like all of us live in a stick-built home, I presume, those homes in Georgia are built to what's called an I-code standard, right? Well, in the manufactured housing world, we have a building code, but it's administered by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. It's called HUD. Now, the things with tiny houses and these houses in a box and whatnot, they're it's somewhat of the Wild West because you don't really know who's building them and how and to what standard.
China.
The IRC and the HUD code stuff is all about safety and performance, right?
Right,
and,
to withstand hurricanes, earthquakes, or they have rebar in them or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
or to wire it properly so your house doesn't catch on fire,
Right.
things like that. And so when the tiny, people love the tiny homes because they're cute. What the construction codes do is they serve to give you consistency and quality and safety in the performance of your home.
So are they taxed, to JB's question, are they taxed just regular sales tax then?
The stuff from Amazon and stuff like
Yeah.
that? Oh, yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just TPP. Yep.
Okay.
And it wouldn't qualify for this because he has specific stipulations in his law regarding, HUD and the building code and stuff like that. It has to,
So you couldn't title one
No.
of these homes and put it on your land and sell it with your land?
because it's not even titled. It's just a structure. It'd be like buying a Morgan building or something from Home Depot and you just towed it out there and dropped it on the land. I mean, you have to disclose that there's a Morgan building that's there, but hey, guess what? There's no title transfer or anything like that to it because you already just bought it as a piece of TPP.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So, Jimmy, what are you working on now with the manufactured housing lobbying? Like, what's your current work project?
Okay, so we've been sitting here talking about taxes and how they're applied to manufactured homes, and so we're trying to get that changed. I had mentioned earlier a bill specific that we had passed where if you are retiring the title, you get a partial exemption on your sales tax, right? The state portion of your sales tax. We actually want to repeal that, and we've got a formula that we want to put in place that says the sales tax, the 7 or 8% you pay on a manufactured home is based on the materials portion of the home, right? And so the way that the industry standard number for that is whatever the dealer invoice number is, about 60% of that represents the building materials package for that home. So if you're selling a home, for $80,000, instead of charging 7 or 8% on $80,000, it would be, and say the dealer paid $50,000 on his invoice, you're going to pay 7 or 8% on the $35,000 instead of 80. So a lot of our market is folks, first-time home buyers and fixed-income seniors. The idea is by lowering the sales tax, it helps them stay qualified and build a nest egg for themselves.
Absolutely. I think it's commendable, especially in this market. They talk about how, home ownership is becoming so much more unreachable for a greater percentage of our population. So it's a great option.
The average price of a home in Georgia, I think they say, is around $360,000 right now, and the average price of a manufactured home is about $130,000. The build is fantastic. They're more energy efficient than anything that's out there that's site built. There's just a lot of advantages to it, and plus there's just people that they don't want a big mortgage obligation.
Well, we're glad you're putting the work in, and thank you so much for your lobbying efforts.
Absolutely, man. And thanks for taking the time to come in and walk us through the legislative process. I mean, it's so awesome. We got to learn a ton of new stuff. JB finally figured out what the word lobbyist actually meant, which is great. Love that.
That was good.
And just generally, thank you, man.
Yeah, generally is important.
That's right. Nailed it.
We
Generally.
generally thank you.
Hey, Jimmy appreciates coming on the show.
That's right. Nice.
Thank you for referencing one of my favorite Seinfeld episodes.
There you go.
Jimmy did a great job. And in fact, your haiku game is strong. We will reschedule another podcast with just haikus.
I will be happy to be absent that day, but I will wish you guys all the luck in the world.
Well, hey, just remember, we're making tax podcast magic, and you're not needed.
Yeah,
That's exactly right.
that's right.
There you go. I'm
So-
definitely not needed that day. Love it.
Well, Jimmy, again, thank you so much for being on Taxing Poetic today. And just a reminder to our listeners, you don't have to listen to these episodes in order. You can listen to them however you like. If you have any haikus, if you think you can, write them up to Jimmy's abilities, send them in. We have an email address, taxingpoetic@synexustax.com. So send us your haikus or your comments. Any complaints about Tim, send them in. And you can listen to us anywhere where you enjoy your podcast. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks, y'all. Himothy approves.
Good job.
Bye.